Alright, so we are back at home for the video, and I got to skate today. That was good. Lots of good thoughts that I was thinking for that journey that I will get to later. I came home and took a shower, and then I had somebody send me a message saying they were interested in the box springs, right? So the box springs, I switched out the bed. This bed that I'm currently sitting upon is the bed that I got off of my brother's family because they got it for their kid and she didn't like it, probably because it's too soft. But I like soft beds, so it's perfect for me. And my dogs seem to appreciate it too. Only complaint is this here body pillow that Gidget likes to sit on will occasionally get stuffed down from her laying on it into the crack between the bed and the other bed. And we have to shove it back periodically. Not like it's a huge problem or anything. And it's a hella comfortable bed, so it's worth it. Sold the other mattress a few weeks ago and was happy to get it out of here. And then had the box springs just chilling in the storage unit. And it's kind of funny because all last week, like, I knew that my aunt and uncle were going to pay me for watching their cats and dog, right? And I don't know why Gidget's making all sorts of grunting noises down there. She's rolling around, so if you hear random dog grunting, it's because she's rolling on the floor for some reason. But anyway, I knew they were going to pay me, but I had something that was due last Friday that came out, and, you know, they were still out of town. So I just kept getting they were having every, like, 2 or 3 days. It was through that Klarna thing, so it's like paying for. And it was the last two payments on these two, or the last payment for these two different things. And I was like, I know I don't have that there. You know, so it's like, I don't know, that's not going to work. So I kept getting these messages that the payment wouldn't go through. And then I got one on Friday, I think, that said that if I didn't pay it, that that it would go to collections, right? For the last $22 on my concert tickets that I don't regret doing it that way at all. And it was like $30 on some Etsy thing that I did a while back too, right? So it's like the very last payment for both of these two things. And I knew I was going to have the money. I just didn't have it then, right? But the whole week, you know, I just kept getting these messages about surrendering, and, you know, you can't control where you're at on some of these things. So you just need to surrender to what is, and it's going to work out. You know, there's a whole lot of, you know, reminders that if you're focusing on lack, you're going to continue having the lack, right? And anyway, so my aunt and uncle got home yesterday, and I was sitting outside throwing the ball for Gidge, and my leg's bleeding now because I just picked a scab off for some reason. I don't even know what I did to my leg, but I had a scab on it. So anyway, they saw me outside throwing the ball for Gidge, so they came over to pay me and to talk. And so we talked for a little bit, and they gave me the money, and then I went immediately to the bank and immediately paid off those two things. And was thrilled to death to have the last ones done, right? And everything was fine, right? It got handled. I had another thing that was coming out today through the Klarna stuff again. And it's like, I knew it was there. All was well, right? So since I was not focusing on the money not being there, because it was there, then I ended up, once I got out of the shower, I got this message where somebody was interested in the box springs. And I sent him a message and I said that I needed about an hour before I would be ready to meet him over there, but any time after that would be fine. He didn't respond. So I go about getting ready for the day. Getting ready for the day, like 1:30, 2 o'clock. Yeah. But I skated, so delayed getting ready a little bit, right? So anyway, he didn't respond, but somebody else sent me a message for the box springs, and she said, I will give you extra if you can bring it out to me. She says, I live like 5 minutes away from you. And I looked at the apartments she said she was at, and it was like 15 minutes down the road. It's like, that's no big deal. And she's giving me more money, fine. You know, so I finished getting ready, go load up the thing in my dad's truck, told him that I was going to take his truck to try to get rid of these box springs. And he didn't complain about it or anything. So we just went ahead and proceeded, right? So, I load them up, and I'm halfway out there, right? I've already told the lady I'm coming, and I always figure there are 4 ways people can send me money, right? They can give me cash, they can use Venmo, Apple Pay, and I had one girl pay me through Cash App recently, and it's like, all those worked out fine. So I have options, right? Well, when I'm halfway there, she sends me a message and says, I don't have Cash App or Apple Pay. Do you take Vero? It's like, I don't even know what Vero is. You know, I stopped and was like Googling it. And it's like, apparently it's a bank. I don't know if it's from Texas, because her profile said she lived out there at some point in time. I was like, I don't know what that is. I said I can do these other means of payment. And then she didn't have any of those and wasn't willing to look into trying to have any of them, right? So it's very much Vero or nothing. It's like, well, that's the one I don't have, so I don't know what to tell you. So I ended up turning around and going back home. And, I mean, on the one hand, it was annoying because I'd gone over to the storage unit and wrestled the stupid thing onto the back of the truck and got it tied down all by myself and all these things just to have to take it back and put it back in the storage unit. So it was kind of annoying. While I was messing around with that, somebody sent me a message on OfferUp about a chair that I had posted. And, you know, he was willing to come out. He said it'd probably take a half hour to get there. So, you know, he said I could do 3:30 or 4. I was like, all right. I said I'm supposed to meet somebody, because it was like right before I left the storage unit, I think was when I heard from him. I said I'm on my way to meet somebody, but then after that, I can be back over the storage unit, right? So, well, when this is the first thing fell through, and I circled back to obviously take it back to the storage unit, you know, I told the next guy that I was on my way back, so anytime, basically I ended up, dumping off the box springs in the storage unit and going down and getting ice cream and then coming back and sitting at the dentist office that is in front of my storage facility, right? And I was like, I'm here. I already, since I had to get back into the storage unit, I just put the chair in the back of the truck, and it was like, you know what, you don't even have to go in this time. So got it handled, and, you know, got 20 bucks out of the chair. Very happy, and it was very nice, because this is one of the, like, I started getting these messages again because I released control of this thing, and I stopped focusing on not having, because obviously I had enough to cover what I needed it to, and then it opened up the flow again. So I was like, oh, hot damn, I'll take it. So as I'm on my way back home after I got the chair sold, I get a message from the first guy that had asked me about the box springs and said something about his phone service had gone down for a while earlier in the day and it was back up now, and could he come get it then? It's like, yes. So, I was going to get a tissue and to wipe this blood off my leg, and then I didn't know if I had any. It's like, I kind of do. Anyway. That's better. I'm not just looking at this bloody spot on my leg, trying not to hit my arm on it or whatever. Anyway, so, you know, he said he was like 20 minutes out It's like, no problem, I'll meet you there at 5. Even got to take some things back to the library because the library's right across the street, so that was a happy thing. So I ended up getting $35 today between the chair and the box springs, getting those out of my space, which they're again freeing up some space so we have room to receive more, right? On the brief little intermission of coming back home, I think my dad was pissed that I had just got back with his truck. And the truck had popped up a message when I was pulling out saying that it was time for an oil change. It's like, we knew that. I've been saying that for a little bit, but I mean, we don't drive it that much. It's been parked because my dad can't drive. And so, I don't know what he's pissed about. Possibly just that I took the truck. But I did mention that I was taking the truck and gave him the option to say something, and he didn't say anything. So, I just continued on with the truck, right? When I got back, he was having some sort of malfunction. And my mom wanted to say it was because of Taz barking. She said, I don't know, we were talking just fine, and everything was fine, so I'm thinking it was just because of Taz. It's like, that felt like it was a little more than just Taz. But anyway, like, he had this, like, eruption, and it was just like, whatever, dude. And my mom tried to pin something back on me with just the lack of respect. It's like, I'm still not the one that ever called him a dumb bitch. And she said, that was one time and he apologized. It's like, did he apologize? Because I don't really seem to remember that, actually. And either way, he still said it. And, you know, as I've said many times, I'm confident he has killed me in other lifetimes, and I am confident if there was a way he could get away with it in this one, he'd probably have done it too. Or you know, like if they were still doing like the witch hunts and all those things, he probably would have said something. Because they don't like me. I've said that. That's not new. It's something that I struggled with for a long time, but now that I'm getting mouthier and learning more who I am, I'm awesome, and if they have a problem with it, then they can just get the fuck over it, because once I'm done here anyway, so whatever. And while I have not come out and told them that straight to that extreme, it's not far off. I can just tell it with the way the conversations keep coming up with my mom, you know, and she keeps, when she brings up my brother and sister-in-law and all that stuff, she keeps wanting to blame everything on my sister-in-law for being the reason that they left. One of these days I'm going to say, no, it was me that encouraged them to leave. Because I started pointing at what I was noticing, and then my brother started noticing it, because his wife's been noticing it for a long time, but of course, since she wasn't right in the middle of it, he didn't get what she was talking about. Once I started calling it out, then he was like, wait a second. Then he started noticing it, and of course, because he had a job-related issue and ended up having to go to a therapy group for a while, they were talking about what he had gone through growing up was not normal. And so that was where it kind of confirmed a lot of the stuff that I was talking about that I'd been noticing. So at some point, I'm going to say, you can keep blaming her all you want, but it was me. I entirely encourage them to relocate, because you're not going to get out of the middle of their stuff, and you don't stop meddling, you don't respect boundaries, so it was just time to go. So yeah, that, she really won't like me then, but fuck if I care. I'm kind of over that caring thing on that end. And now I'm a big fan of, you're going to get back what you've been putting out there. And, you know, I spent my whole life blaming myself for their issues on a lot of things, and, you know, basically locked in this kind of suicidal ideation stage of, because they made me feel like I wasn't supposed to exist. And yet I existed, so clearly there was some kind of something that wasn't adding up. Well, turns out when you set boundaries, the thing that doesn't add up is the people that are supposed to give a shit about you, and you know, and, you know, always knew that they didn't actually, once they are unable to access your energy and pull you around like they were previously, then they have an issue, because then they just can't figure out why you're not budgeable and why they are so completely miserable. Miserable because that's what you're putting out in the world, so that's what you're getting back. And I'm just done intervening to soften the blow of that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting though, because, okay, so this is me today. My Be Comfortable in Your Own Shell. I love this shirt. Found it on Etsy. I don't remember what the page was. My mom got it for me for Christmas not for Christmas, for birthday, because I put in a request. Because after the way Christmas went, with not getting anything that was even remotely useful, and yet knowing that she wants to do something. She's my mother. She expects that's her duty, right? So she's got to get me something for my birthday. By her feeling that, not by me. I could care less, honestly. But since she was going to do it anyway, that time I did mess up the blood. Gross. So, no idea what that's from. Oops. But yeah. Okay, so backtrack. Before I got distracted with the blood, what was I talking about? Something with my mother. Oh, the birthday thing. Right, so I put in the request for the shirt. Got the shirt. Also got my octopus playing the drums shirt. It's a little snuggly, because it's apparently women's sizes, but this I thought this one was supposed to be women's sizes, and it apparently, I don't know, it might be, but it fits like it's, it kind of feels a little baggy, honestly. The other one fits a little snugly, so I don't always wear it, but I will wear it again. Just not when I've been feeling like I've been getting a little squishy again. So, yeah, I mentioned that the other day, where I lost like 50 pounds when I was skating obsessively, and then with the family intervening and reverting back to stress eating and all these fun things, I think I put like 10 to 15 pounds back on. Working on that again. So, trying to, at very least, make the exercise things a more consistent normal again, in spite of the family chaos. So, yeah, so the shirt, right? So, and I was looking for a reason to wear these earrings yesterday. These were a gift from the Eklektik shelf page on Etsy, and I had a bunch of stuff that I ordered, and she thought of me for the fuck your illusions. So I got them, and I love them. But I hadn't had a chance to wear them, and yesterday I was like, I really want to wear these earrings, right? Reason I'm talking about this now is because this is what I did today, right? I got the earrings, the shirt, and I always, when somebody sends me a message on Facebook Messenger, I always check to make sure it's an actual person with like an actual profile, right? I don't care if I can't see their profile, but if I can at least see that they've had a profile since 2020, I believe it more than if, it was created today, right? So, those ones I usually don't respond to. But anyway, I saw this guy that wanted to get the box springs, right? I look at the little bit of his profile that I can see, and he has something talking, some kind of, I don't know if it's actually in scripture or if it was just like one of those church sayings, but it was something churchy related and God and whatnot. Anyway, it just had church vibes, right? Didn't specifically say anything, didn't specifically say if that was a Bible verse or whatever, just had it as, just as though he'd said it, kind of a thing. For the little tagline or whatever. I don't even know what Facebook calls it. Mine says all awesome all the time. So, yeah. Anyway, I just got this sense that it's going to be a churchy thing, right? And I get the message when I'm waiting over at the storage unit outside of it, so so he can follow me in. And he sends me a message saying pulling up. All right. And it was nice because I gave myself enough time to go to the library for 30 seconds and drop off 3 of the things that I've watched recently. I'm currently watching Final Destination. I've watched 1, 2, and 3, so I still have 4 and 5, but it's like a 5-disc set, so I'm going to watch the last 2 and then take those back too. And that's today's agenda. Possibly while packing up more in here. Because we're back to fighting with the family, and therefore we're back to motivated on moving shit out of here. Plus, there's not other things like dealing with my aunt's dog getting in the way. So, right. So, we get over there. He follows me in the storage facility, and I pull up. I took a couple dog crates with me because, I kept talking. I had my dog crates in the family room, and, like, that's the room that I had stuff in, right? The dog crates were the big thing that I had in there. So, since they haven't been needing the dog crates in a while, I went ahead and took 2 of them apart and took them over to the storage unit today. And this little table that I'll probably end up selling, to be honest. And then a mirror, and I just threw those in the back of the Escape and was like, yep, I can just, while I'm in there, I can just throw those in there and get them out of the space too, and then possibly sell some more stuff now that I got a couple things moving again. And anyway, so this truck follows me in. And this guy gets out of the truck and he's got this shirt on that says Jesus loves you. It's like, yep, I knew it. I don't know if he got close enough to see my earrings. I'm going to say probably not. I tried to stay back a little bit, just so I didn't have to, deal with anything on that end should he have an issue, but I wasn't changing. I thought about taking them off and doing something else. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm not doing that. But he doesn't have to pay attention to him. I mean, like the interaction with the guy in the chair, it's like, that dude clearly wasn't paying attention. And I figure most guys don't really pay attention unless you point it out, right? So, his girlfriend or wife, or I'm going to assume wife probably, they were dealing with money. She stayed in the truck and, he put it in there and all that fun stuff by himself, and it was fine, right? And it was kind of, I don't know what it was. I pulled the box springs out when I got there, obviously, that's why he was there. So I opened the storage unit and I pull the box springs out immediately, and of course I do it by myself. It's the thing I do now. I like moving my shit by myself. Mainly because my family has made me very reluctant about wanting to ask for help, because it's usually, now you owe me, right? But, so my super hyper independent nature, just to avoid getting screwed over by people with stupid shit, I'm not trying to be the damsel in distress and need help for every damn thing. It's like, it's fucking lightweight. It's not that heavy. I loaded it in the damn truck by myself and, strapped it in and everything. That was a little bit of a pain in the ass, but I made it work. Right, like when I was taking it out, and I was going to move it closer to him, and he says, I got you. It's like, all right, whatever. My hero. It's like, as long as you're buying the damn thing, I don't care. Get it out of my space. He did say, how excited are you to have it out of there? It's like, you have no idea. I definitely was ready for that one to go. Thought briefly about just taking it to the dump last time my aunt wanted to make a run over there to get rid of some stuff, and I was like, nah, I still think I can get money out of it, and I did. $15. Not getting rich off of it by any means, but that's spendable. And honestly, it'll probably go to paying the next month of the storage unit, which hopefully I don't need the full month. Hopefully I win the lottery or something between now and then and get the fuck up out of here, because this is not my favorite space. Although I do like my room because of how my chaos on the walls now. But like I said, I am going to work on packing more of it up and getting more involved in solidifying the getting the fuck out of here vibes, right? And really let the universe know I am ready to get the fuck up out of here. Might have to move my DVD player back into this room when I go to work on stuff later, though, because obviously watch a movie while I'm doing that mindless stuff. Otherwise, I still have stuff in the office, obviously, to pack, but I think the next things that I'm going to pack is going to be like a lot of like the little trinkety things and probably my little stuffed animal-y things up there. But like these little FurryBones dudes. Excuse my butterfly's little dust bunny on his antenna. That's pretty cool. Well, I got a whole bunch of them in here. Oh, now I got dust bunny. Cool. That's awesome. But then I got 2 in the other room. I got Bastet and Horse. Because I found those on this VampireFreaks page and was super stoked when I saw those. It's like, love FurryBones. Love Egyptian gods and goddesses and whatnot. So, yeah, so, anyway, did that. I watched this thing this morning. It's a new page that I follow, Aurora Ray. And she was like, channeling of the Galactic Federation. And the little thing she had this morning, she was talking about it's time to stop preparing to live your purpose and step into living your purpose. And it's like, I feel that. And I'm like, especially here lately, it's like I feel like it's just time to start talking about the things that I know are going to piss people off, right? And so that was like the last thing I did was watch this thing before I went over to skate. And then I had all sorts of fun thoughts while I was skating. So I was thinking, right? Obviously. So, okay, where's the start point on that one? Well, been talking a lot about metal, right? And, you know, being confident that that's where music in general, but especially metal, not exclusively, but especially, are very key in this whole ascension thing that's going on. And, you know, of course, there are those that I talk about a lot, like Metallica, because I started listening to them a little bit. I'm not one that sat down and listened to like all their albums or anything, but there were always songs that when I came across them, it's just I latched onto them and they stayed with me, right? So, you know, and there's a lot of things like that. So, one of the things that I was thinking about was how, okay, like for Metallica, you know, like how many people starting in music started learning their music when they were like, you know, wanting to start playing, right? How many people fell into that kind of camp, right? So, you know, because I know my brother played guitar briefly, and I know he talked about Green Day at one point, but I think Metallica might have been in there as well. I'm sure it was, because he listened to a lot of them there for a while. And, you know, just, I've heard a lot of people that have talked about, like, that's kind of a start point, right? So, I was thinking about how, you know, like, okay, what's the likelihood when they set out that they were thinking, oh, that someday lots of little kids are going to learn to play music playing my music, that kind of thing, right? So just this idea, like, what is the likelihood that that was something they thought about when they were trying to start out. And you know, yet you hear of like all these different groups that have gotten the chance to tour with them, right? So then I'm thinking about like just all the different smaller bands that have gotten to, you know, have the opportunity to go on tour with them and learn from some of the greats, right? From like some of their idols growing up, right? So they get to go on tour and learn from them. You know, and like I said, I always go back to Metallica because that's one of the first ones that I started listening to. I have a great appreciation for the fact that there are many others that I've only recently started hearing anything of. Like mainly I listen to Octane, but I've started wandering to Liquid Metal and Turbo, and hearing like some other stuff, right? But like, okay, when I was working at Honda, the guy that trained me, he was in a band, and apparently their big thing was drinking while they were playing and not really taking it seriously or whatever. But we had some conversations, and of course, he is more into like Pantera and stuff like that, right? So it's like, I can appreciate them, but I haven't until recently really started listening to some of the older stuff. And so that, like that, me and that guy talked about that a lot because we'd end up working together fairly frequently. He was pissed when I was quitting because first off, I was the first person that he trained, but the other thing was there were, like he said, all the good people that are competent workers are quitting, right? Except him. So he was not a fan of that. But, you know, we had some conversations where he's talking about, like, the ones that he was listening to and that he and his band kind of did covers of and whatnot. And, you know, of course, I watched something earlier that was talking about Black Sabbath and Judas Priest and whatever else for, like, really starting out, right? Like the 70s or whatever. And it's like, okay, so just all these different things, right? So, okay, so I was thinking about Ozzy was the Prince of Darkness, right? So, of course, you know, hear a lot about Ozzy since he died recently, but it was kind of leaning in on the Prince of Darkness thing and accepting this idea, you know, just kind of leaning into people already demonize your existence and what you're into, so go ahead and continue on in that way, right? So embrace the darker side and step into your true authenticity, because people are afraid of you, so a lot of people don't even want anything to do with you because they think you're evil because of whatever you're doing, because something about what you're doing, you know, while there's a whole group of people that really appreciate it, there's that whole group of people that very much does not appreciate it, and that are very much trying to demonize, you know, anything you do anyway. It's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't for a lot of people, just because they don't like you and you don't, or you are too dark or whatever for them. They want to claim you're evil or whatever. It's like, lean into that. Roll with it, right? See where that goes, right? So then I was thinking, going back to this whole metals, where a lot of this changes are coming from, right? Because, you know, metal is the substance that is refined by the fire. And So I was thinking about that, and then I had this thought of, we're here to ultimately change the world, right? And, okay, this is actually perfect that I ended up doing this video here too, because I was thinking about this. I've always been into color, right? And the biggest thing with this space that I painted, of course, my tree, I might not have put the tree otherwise if I would have known this like purple and blue and pink and stuff was going to end up like it did. But the tree was my starting point. And I've talked about how, like, you know, there's the whole idea of, if I could do anything, what would I do? Right? And then my room presented me with the opportunity of, because I moved a cabinet off of this wall, my DVD cabinet, and had holes all in the wall. It's like, oh, I did not remember that being the case, because I never saw it with the holes in the wall, because, you know, the holes got put in there when the DVD case was getting hung up, because my dad was pissed he couldn't find the stud. So it had like 16 holes, like an inch apart, all the way down the wall. And, you know, so then when I had the DVD case moved, it was like, well, I can't leave that. So what I had was, my walls were this indigo color, right? And I loved that color. I don't think that is. Is that maybe? No, I think I painted that. No, there's a little bit up at the top, but I don't think you can see it from that far. Anyway, it's up there. It's like a purpley blue. It's indigo, damn it. It's purpley blue. And so we didn't have any of that color left. But what I did have was a whole bunch of little small cans, right? So like pints or whatever, or quarts, or probably quarts, rather than the gallons. Yeah, that sounds right. Won't swear to that, but it sounds right, so I'm gonna roll with it. So anyway, I had like somewhere between 12 and 14 cans of these little paints, because there was the project. Gracie had I put a rainbow wall in Gracie's room in their, the first house that she lived in, and the one they had when she was born. She did not get the rainbow wall until shortly before they moved out of it, but, you know, at one point she wanted a rainbow wall, so I helped her with the rainbow wall. They got all these cans of paint. There was, of course, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, but also pink and aqua. You know, so there's a little bit further. And then they had blue from the rest of their house, and a couple other colors. You know, but they were like, they had all this paint in the corner of their house, and they were just going to leave it behind. And then it's like, don't leave it, I'll take it. I like free paint. I like discount paint too. So I'm a big fan of going to Lowe's and just shopping in the cheap paint. That's how I discovered my, you know, my little frame painting thing that I enjoy doing, was because I got a couple clearance cans of spray paint, and then was like, what can I use these for? And I was like, hey, I can use these to paint frames. So I did. And that was a bit of a hobby for a little while, and it still is, but it's not something that I've had a chance to do for a while. That bear picture frame actually might be the last one that I did. But yeah, like all the colored ones I did, except for my dark goddess over here. That one, I think that one was from a wedding gift. And it was like the 10 Commandments of marriage or some bullshit. And I was like, well, that can go. So I trashed what was in it and got Hecate instead. And of course, I've talked about her. She's like one of my big archetypes, right? So big thing with her specifically, let's go back to 2020, when Gem Goddess, I watched one of her videos, and it was a tarot reading, pick a card, and I picked this pile, and at one point she had this card in front of her that was Black Dog from these like tea leaf decks, or one of those tea leaf things or something. Anyway, she pulls this Black Dog card, and she says, black dogs are important to me, and it's about time. Well, going back to this kid, she's not the only one. because I had the dogs at this time. And she said that. It's like, obviously that's important because this is the only time in my life I ever had black dogs. And I have 3 that are exclusively black. Taz ran off. Diva's over. Well, I'll come back to my ZB. ZBDB. Yeah. But anyway, right? So the black dogs, right? And then, of course, Hecate kept coming up, like, many times. And then one day I hear something talking about her black dogs. I was like, well, clearly that's one of my archetypes right there. So, you know, kind of leaned into it, right? There again, leaning into that dark aspect of things. And, you know, I've talked, okay, I know I did a video at one point where I was talking about the girl I went to high school with. She's the music, she's a music teacher at the elementary school. So Gracie loved her. And she was one of those people that, while she is very churchy, she's not somebody that, like, she's somebody that actually seemed to give a shit about the Christ message and trying to live from that space. Like, when you see her, you see somebody that is trying to be a genuinely nice person and just doesn't suck at life like many of them do, right? So, you know, I did a video where I was talking about how, you know, I always had a great deal of respect for her and everything. And at some level, it was like it's like we're connected, but we're 2 very opposite ends of the spectrum, right? And I talked about her as, you know, kind of more on the light end of things, and not because of the church. Definitely not because of that, just because of who she is. Like, she actually has her own authentic light that she, you know, and she gives a shit about people. You know, and then, you know, it's just kind of more on the dark goddess end of things, right? So I had a video where I talked about, it was like probably the longest one I ever did, where I was talking about that. So, anyway. She's like, you can lay here with me, that's okay. Anyway, so going back to the painting. Thank you. So I had this idea of, if I could do anything, what would I do? Well, so then I have this, I was going to just like tweak the spot that I had patched all the holes, because then I just had a huge white spot down the thing. And there's like, I didn't have any of that paint left, but I had all these other colors, so I started playing with it, right? I was like, what can I do? And then, okay, so it turned out chaotic, especially when I wasn't skating it out of my system first, right? Whoops. I hung this dream thing up. I've had that for a while. And anyway, that's just kind of a distraction. Never mind my distraction, but the chaos, right? The chaos is the purpose here. So, what I did was get chaotic. Because I couldn't just fix the one spot. I had to come up with a whole something else. But the chaos came in because I didn't get to skate the chaotic energy out of my system, which ended up being really kind of useful and helpful, because it's kind of like a means of divination now. You know, kind of like the purpose of like scrying or whatever, except for I just have the paint on my walls, and I'll just sit here and stare at it, and it's like, the first thing I noticed was, you know, when I didn't skate before I finished painting, because I wanted to paint and get it out, you know, I wanted to finish up the project, there was all this chaos, right? But I really liked how it turned out, even though it was chaotic. And, you know, like, it was realizing that the chaos with my family, 4444, was always just sitting in my system, right? When I wasn't, like, in the, you know, in most of my life where I wasn't physically active and, you know, like into like roller skating and running and all these things, it's like that icky energy, that chaos was just sitting in my system. You know, I've talked about it a lot with the cleaning end of things, right? So I've always been the kind that I will get real productive for an extensive span of time, and then it gets to a point where I just hit the wall and I can't go any further, right? So it was often in the garage or the living room or whatever. And what I realized was when I stopped and took a break, their stuff kept creeping in. You know, like the garage. We went from being able to fit the car in there to suddenly having to sell the stuff sell the camper. So pulling all the stuff out of the camper, which then it ends up in the garage, and then just shrinks the path, right? And then she goes into this auction for her friend's sister that died, so her daughters could raise some money. And she bought a whole bunch of shit she didn't need to further collapse down the path. And then when we barely have a walking path through the garage, she goes and breaks her back. So, you know, it goes back to that trying to force me to have to clean up stuff for them, right? To make space for them to exist in this space that they keep fucking up, right? So it's like, once I was able to see the chaos on the walls and out of my system, then it's like, that's why I haven't been able to figure anything out, because it's like there was always more getting piled on, so I couldn't take the space to step back and really figure out what's going on. So I just had another thought too. Okay, there's this line in the song that I absolutely love it. Okay, so the song, my brother introduced me to that one again. It is one of my favorite to skate to at the moment. It is a song called Skills and Pills, right, by Lindemann, which apparently I found out today was like one of the guys from Rammstein and another guy. It's like, oh, cool. But anyway, they have the song, and I love it. And my brother introduced me to it again, because that's usually how I find out about the darker, heavier stuff anyway. But I mean, that one's not really dark. That one's just awesome. But anyway, there's this line in the song that I absolutely love. And I realized in the past couple of days that it kind of, in a weird way, refers back to a story that I told on here before. Because, okay, for the divination in my walls, right? Okay, so I talked about my tree right over here. Anyway, we'll go there. So I decided to make it a fall tree because I like fall, right? So it's got a bunch of orange, red, and yellow, right? And for this whole journey, like especially the twin flame side of things, and clearing dense energy out of my system to, you know, work on the ascension stuff, right? Going back to that Aurora Ray, I watched a video she did the other day that was talking about twin flames, and she said that true twin flames are, how was it she worded it? Essentially spiritual technology, because it is a means of getting deep into spiritual lessons very quickly, and you know, this whole spiritual activation that comes along with them. It's like this huge thing, and like the whole process is meant to be fast and to bring out the truth of who you are, right? So, you know, like if we go back to when I started this whole thing, you know, when I mentioned that after I turned my love and career lives over to the universe, then I got hooked on this song, and then while I'm watching this video of this guy singing his song over and over again, I get this, you know, this little intuitive hit that's him, that's the one you've been looking for. And my response was, yeah, right, he's out of my league, right? So, obviously, I've had to do a lot of work to get out of that mindset, because it was very much stuck in the don't deserve anything good kind of mentality, because that was what I was taught. You know, I was taught that, you know, basically I'm a shitty human, I need somebody else out of me to save me, and blah, 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 all that bullshit, right? Anyway, on the process of the healing work, and I got... the orange stood out because the one dream that I've referred to a lot, that the one that my ex was in starting out, and when I went back into it later, realized that he was there, and part of the reason I was so angry at him was because he was not supposed to be there. But because he had had access to my energy, he had access to that space that he was never supposed to have access to. So, as I started clearing out some of the toxic cords and whatnot, like with the ex and whatnot, the karmic cords, right? Getting rid of those situations, which there's another thought, but I'm going to try to finish this thought first because I have like 5 I think I have like 5 open tabs in my brain of things that I've started and wandered off from. I'm going to try to go back to orange right now is the big thing. So the dream, you know, I've talked about on here before that, like, the building it was in, there was like this orangey hue. And, you know, with the twin flame connection, you know, and clearing the dense energy out of my system, I started to realize that, okay, orange is, you know, the sacral chakra, and, you know, it's the one responsible for sexuality and creativity. And this go right hand in hand, right? Because if you're blocked in one, you get a little blocked in the other pretty easily. And, you know, this world that we exist in, with the patriarchal bullshit, trying to keep women subservient and whatnot, and it hasn't been safe for, you know, in my life, it hasn't been safe for me to have the creative things that I've branched out into, right? So, like, the bear picture, you know, because it's my go-to, because in January, when I won the contest that I only put in for because I knew that the prize package was the chance to be, or to have my picture be the centerfold for the Zoo magazine, and that was the only reason I put in for it. Had I saw anything about a prize package, I would not have done it. What the prize package ended up being was 4 free passes to, you know, ride one of the zoo's rides or feed the animals. And if I would have known about it ahead of time, I wouldn't have even entered the contest, because I automatically counted because of my family, as they did with this one, because within a half an hour of finding out I won the contest, I was trying to fill out the paperwork for the zoo to give them permission to use my picture. My parents had hijacked the moment, and I ended up crying and spent the rest of the day crying because they had hijacked the moment. And then what I realized when it came back to the cardinal, the mama cardinal that put her nest in the rose bush in front of the window, and then deemed it wasn't a safe spot, so she pushed the egg out of the nest and went to relocate. You know, what I learned from that situation was everything that I've tried to make space for creativity, when I thought there was any kind of threat to it, I automatically shifted into self-sabotage. I wouldn't let myself go any further, right? So going back to the sacral chakra and, you know, creativity bit, right? So we're going to focus on the creativity bit. So since the orange was in the dream, since that was, you know, one of the first twin flame dreams, and it had like the whole band in that one, and the walls were orange. When I was telling this particular story once, I focused on the orange, right? And I feel like there's a lot more orange in this wall, but you can't really tell. Yeah, it kind of can. Anyway, not right now, Gidge. Take a break. So this one day, I am in my space, right? And I'm gonna have to turn the light on. And I just come over to this here wall, and this was not the orange spot that I found. I think it was like some stray orange dot, like right there, right? That looks orange. So I just found this random dot, and it's like, okay, so I'm over here. right? This random stray dot over here on the side of the wall. And yeah, there's other orange nearby, but, you know, but that, like, otherwise, like, other than that little bit of, like, I could see more, but then most of it was over here. Should probably open that back up in case they want to leave the room and not pester me. So I said, okay, so I'm the little stray dot, right? But then I got like all this like soul family connection over here, and like all the lots of orange, and it's like I see them, and I know they're supposed to be in my life, but I don't know. It's like, how do I get there, right? Because I'm just this little stray orange dot, and it's like, okay, so what do I have to do to get there? Right. So what had to start was I had to start, you know, doing the thing where I'm talking and presenting my craziness and basically, you know, open myself up to share more of who I am, right? So like the truth of me and what makes me me and these kind of things, right? So it's like the way to be noticed by my soul family way over here, that's all bright and shining in their space, right? And when I'm this like random stray dot over here somewhere, and yeah, there's other orange around, but you know, not the big bright orange over here, right? So it's like, okay, so how to expand my dot? Well, that's through using my voice is one of the biggest things, and actually sharing my crazy thoughts where other people can find them in the world. And expanding my dot, right? Duh. That's about the extent of it, right? So the things that I feel inclined to do, I need to do more of. You know, and not like get obsessed with them and just never do anything else because I'm so wrapped up in this other thing, but the things that light me up, that bring me joy, do more of those. So that's how you expand your dot. So anyway, going back to the song that I started with, Skills and Pills, that I love skating to. Again, Lindemann is the group, and they have this song. They have this line in the song, so it's like talking about like all the pills that they're on, right, and what they're for, and some of them they explain by color. But like one of my favorite lines is just because it says the orange is for I don't know, right? So I don't know. It makes me happy, right? But anyway, when I started making that connection about how I associated myself with like the orange dots, because in the space in the dream, everything had an orangey hue. Right, and where my ex wasn't supposed to be had that orangey hue, and my creativity, because that's sacral chakra stuff, that's orangey hue, right? So then this line in the song, I think the past couple of days was where the song or the line hit me, and I really started thinking about it with the association that I had made because of this chaos on my walls, right? So I wrapped up one tab. Now let's see if I can figure out how to get back to the others. No, I'm going to open a new one though, because I just looked at it and it makes me happy. Okay, so I talked about my orchid. This is my little flippy leafed orchid with the crinkly leaves that's apparently dehydrated, and its roots, it's still soaking in water, so its roots are perking back up, and I am thrilled to death. And see, it looks like in this middle section it's starting to fill back in and firm back up a little bit, so super stoked about that, because otherwise, you know, these ones aren't all crinkly, but yeah, they do have some roots that look a little dry, so we're soaking them too, damn it. They're not going to soak near as long as the others, but anyway, random tab because I randomly looked at it and just wanted to share that one. Anyway, so going back to the other story. Crap. Okay, so as I was thinking about, you know, like Ozzy go back to Ozzy, embracing the Prince of Darkness thing, right? And, of course, Rotting Christ, I will always go back to their, first off, the name. Just, I've talked a lot about, like, what I love about metal is that leaning into the darkness thing. My brother and I have talked about, this is another point I don't think I finished from yesterday's video, or whenever. My brother and I have talked about it. He listens to some of the darker stuff than I tend to, but I listen to everything. A lot of times it's a matter of I get obsessed with something and then he has to offer up something else and it's like, ooh, something else to get fixated on, right? Otherwise, I'm really good about listening to the same song over and over again. My dude, what the hell, man? Are you done? Are you done? Uh-oh. No, I don't want it. I don't want it. Not right now. No, I don't hold you either. I'll pet you. So anyway, he listens to the darker stuff. I just listen to everything. Right, so hush. Hush or I will throw you out. Ow, ooh. I went to move my foot and caught his teeth with my toe. Ouch. And that was, he didn't move, he stayed put, and I just lost control of my leg, I guess, and then I end up with my toes getting rammed by his teeth. Anyway, so, the conversations I've had with my brother, it's like, because there is need for all, right? Like all the different levels of heavy and dark and all the things. Stop. Hold on. Okay, you got the boot. But the anyway, because all levels are needed, right? Because some people go really dark places, right? But it's leaning into the shadow of yourself, right? So on that end, like I've talked about my inviting the demons in and leaning into the darkness myself kind of things, right? And the, being massively stuck in suicidal ideation and apathy and having a hard time getting out of that space, right? But there are others who you could say go even darker or heavier spaces, right? And I feel like all are needed, right? So it's like all the, however dark you want to think on this end of things, so like what you think the worst of the worst is or whatever, all are needed because we're all doing this transmuting work, and therefore it's going within ourselves, getting sometimes lost in our own shadow and trying to have to figure out how to navigate our way out. Another thought that I was thinking earlier, going into this darkness idea, I was thinking about, okay, because I have all sorts of things on my skating playlist. The song Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson came on, right? And obviously it's been around for a while, and it's a great song. And I remember this time when I was in high school, music video came on. Music video on TV. Back in the day, man. So the music video for Beautiful People came on, and I was torn, right? Because it is a really catchy song. I was agreeing with a chunk of the lyrics, but at the same time, I was trying to fit the church mold, in my space, right? So, you know, I said, I blamed the song at one point. The song gave me a headache or whatever. And what I think it was this dissonance in my system, because I love the drums in that. You can always draw me in with drums, man. So I loved the drums, and, you know, the lyrics made sense. And yet I was trying to have this existence that was acceptable. And so it was the dissonance in my head that gave me the headache, because it's like there were these things that I loved about this song, and yet the church viewpoint, you know, especially, okay, the stuff that I would hear from my mom's not the epitome of church by any means, and yet a lot of the beliefs that I tend to lump into that came from shit that, you know, she was spouting to me and my brother, about how bad these things were, and yet she wasn't really, you know, she's not the be-all end-all of churchiness even. Although she fits the mold pretty well for what they do. But anyway, I digress. So I feel like it was the dissonance that was stirring the headache in me, because it was like there's this side of me that really loved this sound and this song and this message, and then there was this other part of me that was like, but everything we're trying to do that seems to be a mockery of, right? So, you know, so for a long time I struggled with that one especially. But, and whatever you want to think about Marilyn Manson anyway is kind of irrelevant, but he's one of those people that, you know, of course, I'd say it's, people tend to think of him as relatively dark. And he's been around for a long time, right? All are needed, right? So however deep into the darkness he's gone himself, and the people that, you know, have listened to him for an extensive span of time or whatever, however deep into that darkness any of us has gone, right? Because this is a whole we thing, right? So everything we're doing together. So trying to transmute this dense, icky energy, turning it into something cool, something authentic, something true, right? So okay, so, you know, one of the things I'll talk a lot about with, like, the twin flame stuff was over-identifying with the feminine aspect of myself. Flowing everywhere and not basically trying to fix everything for everybody else, but at the expense of myself, right? But never having any kind of... The big thing was the twin flame connection. It made me realize I already have this frame within me, and I have access to it. And on the mirror end of things, that is the twin flame piece of it, he's got this life where he's creating, you know, this whole thing, and what he's learning, what he's building, you know, that the mirror side of me, right? So I've got the flow flowing all over the place, and not having any sort of sense of how to make anything happen for myself, how to build something for myself, you know, because everything I've been doing has been at the expense of myself. But I didn't realize that until I started setting boundaries, which again goes back to the twin flame thing. That was one of the first lessons I had to learn, was I needed to set boundaries and couldn't just allow everybody to have access to me all the time. Because the people that had the access to me all the time were screwing me over, right? They were adding in all this chaos and making it impossible to do anything, to figure anything out. So yeah. Anyway, so ultimately, I mean, I talk about the twin flame thing a lot because that's ultimately the thing that, you know, it was like, this is important enough for me to keep going and not disappear into myself where I would have in the past, right? So it was this thing beyond me, yet still within me, but it's been navigating that point of how, yes, it's beyond me, but it's still within, right? So while, you know, when I was younger, you know, I was taught all these things about what I was supposed to be as a female to be acceptable in the world, you know, in the church world, and, you know, later found out it was a bunch of shit. But all it did was give everybody else access to my energy and depleted me, right? But then once I found this connection, then I realized, you know, I have the framework within, and leaning into that aspect, you know, it takes both the frame and the flow, right? So, like, okay, you know, I talk a lot about, with musicians especially, getting into the flow state, right? If you hear anybody in any kind of creative field, flow state is important. And, you know, it's like, that's like the feminine aspect, right? So this is, of course, why this has to happen through music, you know, the shifting, because, you know, we have to come into, we have to unify both, or all the aspects of ourselves. Will you stop, please? Here, just go out. Go. Shoo. I don't want to talk about it. I want to go in the other room and not fuss. Now this other one's going to start fussing. So yeah, like, the thing that was blocking me from doing anything worthwhile was I didn't have the sense of structure, that I didn't have the framework to be able to figure it out inside. But it's always been there. It was just the world around me was telling me that I wasn't supposed to be connected to that part of myself, right? I was supposed to have, like, these hyper I was supposed to be overly focused on the acceptable femininity things, right? So being subservient to the men and all this bullshit. And all it did was block me from being able to do anything worthwhile, right? Okay, gotta wander back. It's getting a little on the long side again, so I'm gonna try to wrap it up in a timely fashion. Which, she's chilling. Okay. Anyway, she hasn't yelled at me about it in a while. So, like that's where this has been one of the most important parts of what I'm here to do, is I've always wanted to understand, right? So that's why it's so important for me to have started to use my voice, right? That's something, it's mine. I can do that. And, you know, I have this space where it's okay to do that. And while my life and the people around me have discouraged it as much as possible, right? You know, they went heavy on the guilt and shame for a lot of stuff that I didn't even need to feel guilt or shame over, right? Okay, this is a silly thing that I woke up thinking about yesterday. And what the fuck? I've talked about everything else that I don't think I've kept any secrets from my channel long term. Like, there's been stuff it's taken me a long time to want to talk about, but I think at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, fuck it, I'm going to talk about it anyway, because what's the point in hiding it? Because especially, okay, I've talked a lot about the Southern Baptist Church that I started out at, and how there was this span of time where it was like I was given a peek around the other side of the veil, and, you know, and ultimately, like, the twin flame connection, like, this part beyond me that is still within me. And, okay, on that note, the twin flame thing, the big thing is the two parts come together and create a third energy, which is the God energy, that love energy. So love is God, God is love, love is all there is, right? So everything, you know, light, dark, good, bad, all of that is divine, right? Because it's all to learn things, right? So this is one of my frustrations is like, I have all these things that are coming together, and it's like, I never get to all of the stories and get, like, have the whole thing make sense. It's like combining all these different things, these different elements of stories into this bigger story, and that's kind of the point of the YouTube channel, which is eventually I'm going to be able to write because I've gotten this other stuff out of my system and made sense of it. But it just sounds really chaotic when I jump from one thing to the next on here in my story hour. But anyway, so at the church, it was like I was given this peek behind the veil and this sense that there is good and you can have the good. And I remember thinking at one point, it's like, it doesn't have to be this hard, but I remember thinking, if me going through this helps somebody else, even just one person, it will be worth it. And then it was like, okay, right? It's like, okay, so we're going forward on the path, right? You were given the option of, you didn't have to go any further, and you chose to learn more and to be able to help more people because of that, right? So anyway, so one of the things I woke up thinking about yesterday, this is so stupid. Okay. We're going to talk about nipples. Because why not? So, I had so my brother used to play hockey, right? And I don't like any of the people at my school because they're assholes, and most of them were bullies, right? So it's like, so when I was forced to go to my brother's hockey practices, I wanted to look nice and, just for the possibility of meeting anybody else, because I wasn't going to meet him in this fucking town, right? So it was just the possibility, right? I had this purple sweater that I absolutely loved. It was a short sleeve sweater kind of a thing, and it was like my favorite shirt, and had like a little bit of like a mock turtleneck kind of a thing. It was just my favorite. It was like an awesome color. And obviously I'm partial to purples in there somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Purple side. Which it's not really the purple side. It's purple everywhere, but, I mean, not everywhere, but anyway, I digress. So, I'm like 13, right? And my brother's playing hockey, and I just want to look nice. Because you never know. And so we go, and sometimes, okay, so my mom's friend that, she's been friends with since high school, well, since before high school, I think, the one that was trying to tell me that, grandmas don't need to have boundaries, that conversation. Her husband was the one that died last year, the one that saved me from from almost drowning, and the one, he was really into hockey. And, so they lived at close to the skating rink that my brother played hockey at, right? So he played hockey for this little prep school. So snooty kids, but, but what I knew wasn't these guys. So I wanted to look nice. So I'm wearing this little sweater shirt thing, and a little 13-year-old kid. I was naive as fuck, y'all. And my family's, the thing my family did, especially with girls, right, is you just make fun of them, right? That's how you get them to do or not do the things. You just make fun of them when they don't know. And it's like, that's a problem. Anyway, so my mom makes this big deal about, you're going to fucking ice rink, wearing this little sweatery thing. I mean, sweater, but it wasn't like the real thick, warm and fuzzy kind or whatever. But so she kind of makes fun of me because I don't understand at this point in time what happens to your nipples when you get cold. So she was mocking me on this point, right? And making it a big deal. And her friend, it's like, I remembered, okay, one of the things yesterday, like when I was thinking about this, it's like, I feel like there was somebody else there, and then I was trying to work through that, and it was like, them, because, you know, he was into hockey, so he came out to support my brother in his things, because they bonded over hockey together. This guy was always like another dad to, you know, my brother said that he felt like he was another dad to him. I didn't have that type of connection as much as my brother did, but at the same time, he was, you know, a good family friend, you know, somebody I trusted, honestly, more than my family. But like that was the thing. It's like, I wake up thinking about this yesterday, and I'm just kind of, you know, navigating this whole point. It's like, adding to that guilt and shame thing, right? Because, okay, when I was 8, my cousin starts telling everybody that we had sex because he tried to enlighten me. We did not have sex, but that the damage was still done. Did he touch me? Yes. But was it that? No. But I didn't figure that out till I was fucking 35 because I was afraid to ever look at it and actually see what happened. And, you know, because that was the thing in my shadow that, you know, the thing that kept trying to haunt me, essentially. But it's like, nobody asked me what had actually happened. My mom definitely didn't. She just started pouring on the guilt and shame. And, you know, everybody believed him that this thing happened. And they didn't even want to hear me talk, right? I wasn't given the opportunity to defend myself or to say what actually happened, to find out that that wasn't actually what happened. And I just carried that until I was 35, until my friend Tyler died and gave me the space to start writing letters and figuring that whatever was on the other side of death, he already knew anything there was to know. So because of that, I was able to start facing some of this stuff. And really, there's a whole lot of anger that I've had to work through because of how many years is lost to this whole thing. 'Cause, right? That was something that followed me around. I was getting made fun of for that shit in high school. Like, all of it. And, you know, like, with the drumline friends, like, I think it was Paul. There was one day toward the end of, it was like the last week of school. Might have even been the last day, honestly. We had band class last. And there were like 2 or 3 of us from drumline that sat together that lunch. It was like the last lunch before, you know, the thing, right? And there was this mean girl that I had been friends with once upon a time that, you know, me and Paul start walking out of the lunchroom, and he's going in the direction of the band room, and I was going to run to the bathroom before I went to class. Of course, it was, you know, seniors weren't going to do anything anyway, so we had nothing going on. It's like we were just going to go probably play hacky sack in the hallway or something with the other seniors. But as we start moving in our separate directions, this mean girl looks at him and says, "What are you doing?" And looks at me like I'm a problem. Like he knows better than to be seen with me. And what the fuck is he doing having lunch with me? You know, it's like all the drumline kids, we always had lunch together because we loved each other. And yeah, but there was like this moment where he said, "Nah, she's cool," or something like that. And it was just like, while there should have been that relief that, you know, he was supportive of me in this moment, and, you know, you don't know nothing, leave her alone, kind of whatever, you know. Meanwhile, I went to the bathroom, and I thought seriously about skipping the last class of the day to go kill myself. That's what I thought at that last little bit, right? So from something when I was 8 and that I didn't get to figure out wasn't even actually what happened until I was 35. And it did revisit me before then, too. Before I turned 35, right? It came back around when I was 30. The bully's mom died. And the church had this funeral service, I think it was like the visitation and the funeral was in one. but that place was completely packed because she was one of those people that was genuinely nice to everybody, and she was genuinely trying to pay attention to the Christ message and live that, right? So she was one of those people, and that place was packed because everybody loved her, right? But when we were going up to see the kids and the ex-husband, you know, the daughter I didn't have a problem with, but the son was one of my biggest bullies, right? So at his mother's funeral, he looks at me with that same goddamn smirk like he knew something about me. It was just like, fuck you, man. You know, and then a few years after that, I think it might have been when I was processing through this other stuff, the other bully, which was like the one that was trying to make himself look like a hot shot to that guy. My mom ended up buying some little kids' books or puzzles off of his wife, and he ended up being there when we went to pick them up, and he, the same goddamn look. I was just like, fuck all of y'all, right? So anyway, so 8, right? That's when the first thing, that the really bad thing that, you know, all the guilt and the shame just came on, you know, got dumped on me, right? And then when I was like 9, and my uncle rubs like his entire forearm up my crotch when he was trying, like, I don't even know. I feel like we had something that I was playing with, and he went to take it from me and just ran his whole entire fucking forearm up my crotch, right? And I froze, and my mom saw it, but she was in the other room, and she called me over there to ask me if he touched me, and I panicked because my experience said I would be the one getting in trouble, right? So I didn't say anything, right? I did not own up to that. I said no, because I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't do it, but I didn't want to get in trouble. So yeah. But then, so this other thing comes up when I'm 13, right? And I'm just getting made fun of, right? Because nobody was teaching me anything. They were just, you're just, you know, you're just automatically branded a whore from shit where they're just wanting to keep you ignorant. It's like they don't care if you know anything or not. They're not going to teach you about it. They're just going to make fun of you because that's how they keep you in line. That's how they gaslight you into thinking that you are shit, and let them run over the top of you because you don't have any kind of sense of your value or anything, because they've tried to strip it from you, right? And yeah. Anyway, this started from the thing that I was thinking about yesterday that I just revisited because it was very much that everything was about just loading on the shame and guilt, right? Don't teach them. Just make you feel bad. And there was more on the skating end of things that I was thinking through that. Anyway, I don't know if somebody walked home or not. The car's not home. They might be. But since I'm at an hour and a half, and I've kind of wandered off, so I'm going to have to revisit the stories that I opened up, and the tabs that I opened up and started to talk about and then didn't get back to, and maybe revisit those tomorrow. But yes, for now I'm going to wrap this up. And we'll get back to it tomorrow. Anyway, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.